Are you dreading your next home repair? Don't. Crew Pros is your one-call solution for everything your home needs. Whether it's heating and air, plumbing, complete roof replacement, whole home generators, and electrical repairs. Our professionals get the job done right. Crew Pros is your single source for high-quality home services at affordable prices. For everything your home needs, Crew Pros. Remodel, repair, replace.
Memphis. Nothing but Memphis. Everywhere we go, it's Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee, the beautiful land in the world.
And I'm thankful for this guy who tweeted and said I don't have that fire in my eye no more. That game right there was for him. That's what I do. I prove people wrong each and every night, and that's for him right there.
Hi, this is Tom Izzo at Michigan State, and you're listening to Grizz 901.
What up, Grizz Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Grizz 901, presented by the good people over at Zach Jaworski State Farm, where they treat you like family. We have a quick episode today, so we're not going to get into too much of what's happening, but you know that my guy is here as soon as I can get it off the loop. Yo, what up, Nate? What's up?
Live from Starbucks, baby. That's what we're doing today. That's what happens when something drops in the middle of a work day. So here we are.
Yeah, listen, I think you're out on a beach. We won't tell anybody where you are, but I think you're at the lifeguard station at the beach. Not a big deal. I think it's beautiful. Don't tell anybody. We're not going to tell anybody else you're at Starbucks.
You could not be further from where I am at. Quite literally. I don't even know if there's a beach on the Salt Lake. So you're
I like it. So the Grizzlies obviously now have the suspension been brought down from Ja Morant. It's 25 games. There has been some other news that has come out that potentially the Players Association is not happy about it. But the 25 games in itself, a little closer to what we thought. We both thought it was around the 20 games. But now that it's been dropped, what's your thoughts on it with all that's surrounding it? If you've seen anything out in social media?
I mean, that is the max of what I thought he would get. So I was actually surprised when it came out. I really thought we would be somewhere 15 to 20. I always thought 17 was probably right. 17, I guess 18 could be, but I thought it'd be 16, 17 because it still gives them the chance to win those awards, which I thought was the best of both worlds for the NBA. But yeah, I was a little surprised, but I mean, it was not surprising he got less than 30 / a half season, which I know a lot of people out there thought was on the table. I did lay out my whole scenario on Twitter, which I thought it's a fun thing. It's not an informed thing. Very little of what I say is informed, but you get the 25 games. So Adam Silver gets to look like Iron Fist Adam. Then the NBPA and Ja Morant appeal the suspension, which Adam knew that they would. Then they meet in the middle, and he gets 16 games, which leaves him with a chance to win awards. But Adam still gets a good optics. The NBPA gets to look like they won. It's a win-win-win. Now, will any of that happen? Probably not. But, hey, listen, we're optimistic here at Grizz 901. Mainly I'm optimistic because now we get to move on to something else after the weekend.
That's my thing, is moving on from all this. Like, I know people have talked about it, especially like people like Volcano the Sweat, who's there in our comments here on YouTube. Join us on YouTube if you haven't yet, because then you get to chat with us. We actually get to interact with you. But that is probably the best name, and I always say it just because, even though all he said was "What's up?" But my thinking is, in all of this, is 25 games is okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the best thing in the world. I have some thoughts on it that will kind of clarify kind of what I'm thinking. But in general, it's closer to what we think. If you had to give me an answer because of what the NBA PA potentially could come back and say, hey, we're going to fight this. Do you think that anything gets dropped down in games, or you think we're at 25 no matter what happens?
I think if they appeal, it gets dropped some. The issue is the NBPA, my understanding, I think Bobby Marks just sent this out, can't appeal it for him. He has to be the one to appeal it on his own.
Wow.
And just optics wise and the way this has all gone down, I'm not positive he wants to be trying to fight this too much, right? I mean, the name of the game is accountability for him moving forward. And if you appeal, does that mean that you're now trying to shun the accountability some more in a situation where you've already shunned quite a bit of accountability? I don't know. But if they do appeal, I imagine he'll get knocked down at least 5 games, if not closer to 8 or 10. But
that would shock me.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a huge chunk in all seriousness. But there's a precedent. I mean, our own Sean Coleman put out there that I think Jermaine O'Neal was previously suspended 25 games for something. I mean, that's a while back, right? Jermaine O'Neal. But he appealed and got knocked down to 15. And that's during the David Stern era. That's quite a big chunk taken off, right? So there's a lot of different scenarios. But I think the main thing is he's not going to be gone half the season, no matter what happens. He is going to have to own this. I think it's huge that he gets to be around the team during this. So the fact that it's public league and team activities he's ineligible for means he can be around the team in private training and practice, which I think is really, really important for him as he looks to move forward in this. But we get to now have Bane and Jaren do what they're going to do. And quite frankly, you still get to make all the offseason moves we've been talking about you needing to make anyways, right? Now you get to actually focus on those. The Grizzlies as an organization get to focus on those, and now the spotlight will be moved towards Zion and him completely screwing New Orleans over.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm holding my phone, Sean Coleman, who's watching this and saying I'm playing Angry Birds, I am not playing Angry Birds. I'm about to read this, but Nathan decided he wanted to talk to us again for about 20 minutes about what his thoughts are, even though I just asked him his thoughts. The report came out from the NBAPA as to the discipline imposed, which keeps him off the court until December, which is obviously Ja. It requires some unstated conditions to be met before he can return. We believe this is excessive and inappropriate for a number of reasons, including the facts involved in this particular incident. And that is not fair and consistent. Fair and consistent is big because obviously you have the CBA in a sense. Fair and consistent with past discipline in our league. We will explore with Ja all options and next steps. So with that being said, is obviously there are some options and next steps. What does that make Ja look like? That is the issue. The 25 games, it might get lessened down. And at that point, we're talking about, I believe Ja makes $304,000 per game, right? So you're talking about 25 games. I believe that's $7.6 million over the course of the season that he would lose. So obviously you get money back, but what are the optics on that, right? So if Ja in himself fights that with the NBAPA, does it give himself a black eye because he's not being the guy who's accepting his responsibility? Or is it about, hey, I need to fight this because this is my money, right? It is, what I am known for. I get to play more games. I get to help my team. So where do you find the balance? Because that's a tricky line to walk.
I like how you get on my case for going on and talking about my thoughts and then go on to extensively repeat my thoughts. So appreciate you doing that.
Well, nobody listens to you. So
I tend to think you don't listen, which is why we're having this conversation. I tend to think that they are going to appeal this because the NBPA and Adam Silver have a really good relationship. And Adam Silver has made a point of having a really good relationship there. I don't think he would hand anything down like this without first going to the NBPA. So the fact that, one, the suspension came out at 25 games, which we agree, despite what trolls on Twitter might say, is the max he could possibly deserve for this. And the NBPA has a statement ready so quickly to respond. Again, I think it's a lot of optics, and I think that they are lock in step with this, even though the optics may make it look otherwise. So I think it gets appealed. I think it goes down, despite what you and I both have expressed as far as concerns about the accountability aspect of it. And it either gets the conditions removed games removed or both. My main concern, honestly, through all this, 25 games is not a big deal for the Grizzlies. It's obviously a big deal for Ja Morant. It's a lot of money you're missing out on. And I think the losses now total about $15 million based off of all this stuff that's gone on. So he's paying the price quite literally. But I'm mainly concerned about the dude needs to feel some accountability as a Grizzlies fan.
Yeah.
Right? As a Grizzlies fan and as someone who – go ahead.
But does he feel the same accountability if it's 18 games as opposed to 25? Like, do you still feel the same accountability as a person that did what he did? Like, that's the fine line that I'm looking at is what does it make him look like if he fights this, right, in a sense? But then, like, what's the difference of 18 and 25? Like, I that's 7 games. I calculated it on my calculator. It's 7 games, and I know that is a good amount of money. It's not a ton of games to where you're saying, hey, like that is the difference of having the Grizzlies having a good start or not a good start.
I think it's more the principle behind it. And can you hear me okay? I got like a big old diesel right in front of me. All right, sick.
Big diesel.
Yeah, and not Shaq. That'd be cool. I'm not at Home Depot, so I guess not. But I think it's a principle of it. You know, it's quite frankly, it's you can't have Ja Morant feeling like he's getting away with anything here.
That's the issue.
Right? And that has nothing to do with optics, anything. That has just genuinely to do with him as a person, as a player, and his development and maturity. Because he not being held accountable, even if he is being held accountable, if he has the feeling that he's above the law a little bit here, then that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's not. Like I've come on here before and said, as someone who's dealt with some mental illness, it looks pretty textbook mental illness to me. I don't think it's feeling like you're above the law. I think it could be a little bit of that, but there's a lot of like, I just got so much going on in my head, I'm going to act out. And this is going to be, he's going to have plenty of time to get that worked on no matter what. The suspension ends up being at the end. I just don't want him to feel like he's gotten away with something and he can't get away with something. Because if he feels like he's gotten away with something, I think that will eat at him a little bit if he is actually struggling with mental health stuff, which I think he is.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bigger concern overall.
Yeah. Well, so listen, obviously we don't have the answers for all of this in a sense, but we do know that we know that the suspension is 25 games. We'll talk on the Grizzlies in a second because I want to get there to the Grizzlies. But a lot of people have kind of speculated, like, you know, that puts him out, you know, all the way through Christmas. Like, listen, I've looked back at all the previous seasons, and as of last season as well, they all fit the same timeline. And my target date of the end of 25 game suspension is always December the 10th. And so that means that I'm looking at December the 10th as being the latest that Ja can return. Okay. And so with all of this, we're all in agreement that the 25 games sucks just in general. But we also are all in agreement that Ja needs help. And I know that whatever he's fighting, whatever the demons are, whether it's him trying to find himself, whether he's trying to do and trying to be somebody he's not, whatever that is, okay, that we're all on the same page as the same. Okay. We all agree that he needs help individually. 25 games sucks, but it's not the worst thing in the world, right? We're going to be able to eventually get on, and we're all glad that this finally came out. And so besides that, I want to get to other stuff because it's important. As I said, the December 10th is a target date that I'm looking at. After looking at all the other dates, December 10th looks to be the most common, that it should not, 25 games should not exceed past that date. So at that point, you're talking about, you have a lot of games left, right? And so, but you also have a lot of time left. You would be able to possibly get a Christmas Day game. Possibly. I don't know if they're going to reward the Grizzlies with that. But at that point, the Tyus Jones stuff. Tyus Jones becomes a starter if he's still on the roster. Tyus Jones becomes a starter, and he gets to play where he probably is the most comfortable now, being this far along in his career. At that point, his stock even rises. So if the Grizzlies do not go and move Tyus Jones in this offseason, which a lot of fans and a lot of us agree they should do, but if they can't find the actual right person, team to trade with and get, then actually bringing a guy back who could look really good for 25 games will only increase his stock. And at that point, you're able to possibly flip him mid-season and get somebody else that might be able to help you for the stretch, depending on what's happened that far into the season. So any thoughts on that?
Do we know where the Grizz are with the cap? Do you, off the top of your head? I actually don't know how much cap space they've got.
They're close to it, but they're not over it. But they have 14. The issue is they have 14 guys under contract, right? And they have 2 guys on the two-way. So all they have open is 1 contract on the main roster, and then 1 extra, which is now 3 that you get for the two-ways. And so
well,
they have to consolidate. They have to consolidate.
That's where the issue comes in. They can make roster spots pretty easily because they've got such little money invested at the end of the bench guys that they can just waive them. But the issue is if you waive those guys, but you're already at the cap, you're still at the cap. So where do you make the money plus the roster spots to make all this stuff happen? I think, and I know there's stuff out there with Toronto right now looking to move up. The OG and Anunoby sweepstakes are back on. Toronto looks like they may blow it up, unlike Portland, who refuses to let go. If OG moves on somewhere else or gets traded somewhere else and the Grizz can't get him, I think they still have options. I think they can outbid the Nets for Cam Johnson, or they can go and be the highest bidder for Jeremy Grant and put him in a pretty good situation. And then he's a guy who can have the ball in his hands, create, obviously go get a bucket. The issue comes in with, okay, where are your vets coming from? They still need vets. They got to find vets somehow. Are you able to waive a few guys? Like, I know this is going to hurt your soul, but a John Conchar, make a roster spot. Like, how do you make that happen? That's the issue that comes in because you only real tradable contract of any substance you have is Tyus. So as far as what you said about Tyus being moved at the deadline, I actually like that a lot. With as far as the concept of him being able to up his trade value, and then you have a better deal to make at the deadline. The issue comes in with, okay, what about all the other moving pieces? How are you going to make that happen if you don't move that contract? That's where the issue comes in, right? Yeah. So conceptually, I like it a lot. In reality, I mean, they're wizards up in that front office, so they'll figure something out, but you've got to be able to figure out a way to get vets in, whether you move his contract or not.
Yeah, so my thoughts are obviously Conchar he has an extension, and so I don't believe it kicks in until next season. Just looking through the numbers right now. Yeah, so he's getting 2.4 this upcoming season, but after that it goes up to 6.1 for 3 extra years, and so he's under contract for 4 years. At that point, I'm looking at is what's guaranteed and what's not guaranteed. And I haven't done enough research on looking at what is guaranteed and what's not guaranteed, so I don't want to speak on that. But the simple fact is you're going to have people that are going to have cap holds on you. So if you do, for some reason, just release them outright, bro, you are stuck with their money. All you're doing is creating a spot. And at that point, you're kind of screwing yourself as well. And so just looking at this next 2 years, so they released Kennedy Chandler. Okay. They owe him $1.7 million for this upcoming season. And then the year after that, they owe him $2 million. Right. So they're out roughly $3.7 million and roughly $2 million almost each year over the next 2 seasons because they released him and signed a junior. And so at that point, that's not what you want to do. What you would actually do probably is just trade a guy away for a couple second-round picks and call it a day, right? You create the spot that you want to open up, but then you get back a second-round pick or whatever. Maybe you just switch second-round picks. So pretty much all you're doing is throwing a guy onto their roster that, can afford to pay him. And so that's what you don't want to get to happen. And so you've got to make some consolidation trades. And so if you don't have Tyus to throw in with that, the issue with that is you're going to be stuck with a lot of what's on this roster currently. But I will say this roster currently can easily go 12-13, 13-12 over the first 25 games without a Ja Morant and be okay. Right. Bro. As long as they hold enough, I believe in Tyus, Dez, and Jaren, along with Steve-O and the other guys that will be on the team. I believe they will be okay. The issue is who's running that second, the second unit. That could be an issue.
With this roster, I'd be surprised if they had double-digit losses.
Wow.
I mean, they were really good without Ja last year with the same exact roster. Plus, you throw Steve-O back in the fold. Dude, Jaren was dominating while Ja was serving that suspension. Bane, he looked ready to take the leap and partially did all last season. So they're going to be fine. I'm not worried about that. You still make the Tyus move, in my opinion, if it opens itself up and there's something viable. I think, it gives you the operating room to not move him now going into the season, but it didn't really change anything, right? I mean, the crux of the issue, the crux of the matter is still Ja figuring it out.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, that's the main concern for Grizz fans through all of this. I don't think it changes off-season plans. I don't think it changes much of anything. It's still, can he get his head on straight? And can he quit doing this? And can he get himself into a better place through this suspension? And will this be constructive for him? As long as this is constructive for him, nothing else matters. Nothing else changes. As long as it's constructive, both as him as a player and him as a person.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that this suspension matters the most for. And it's extensive enough that if it doesn't get it figured out, I don't think it's getting figured out. So,
well, if it doesn't get figured out, then all this becomes a wash, because obviously something else eventually will happen, because that is how it always happens. If you don't fix yourself and fix the situation, then eventually you're going to slip up. That's just a guarantee. And so it doesn't matter.
I am interested as to what the benchmarks for him to get back are and the things he has to execute are. I think that's the hazy part. Honestly, if the suspension itself didn't get shortened, but then those were removed, it wouldn't surprise me. Or if they were more explicitly stated. Because, I think back to the Kyrie thing when he got suspended.
Yeah.
It was one of those, whether you agree with it or not, it was like unbelievably vague as to what had to happen for him to come back. And that wasn't fair. That wasn't fair to him, to be honest. And not at all excusing what he did, but it's like, okay, if we're going to move on, how do we do it? And that wasn't clear at all. Now, I also thought it was partially the Nets at the time being like, F this dude.
Yeah.
Get him off the team. We don't want to pay him anymore. But with Ja, if it's clearer and they make it very explicit what has to happen, I think that's going to be important too. Or they just get removed entirely. But that would be what I expect to change, if nothing else.
Yeah. And the good thing about all that is, as it was released in the statement earlier, I know me and you talked about it privately, about the whole situation about being with the team. And so it looks like he is ineligible, not allowed to be facepalm, not allowed to be with the team in a public forum. So obviously, if it is open to the public in any sense, Ja's not allowed to be with the team. Then that just pretty much just speaks to the fact that practices that are made, open to the public can't be at, which those in a sense are like your Midnight Madness type things. They're just putting on a show in a sense anyway. So that means nothing. The other thing is if they're actually games, he cannot be at, but everything else he can actually be at if they're behind closed doors. The only thing I wonder, and I know media is allowed to be at some practices, is he allowed to be at those practices, do you think? Because obviously they won't have him asking and answering questions, though that is off. But is he allowed to be there when media is present?
I doubt it. I'm sure he can be there until media is present.
Okay.
But then when media is there, but I mean, it's such a gray area. There's no telling. I mean, they may say he can't be at team activities. The Grizzlies suspended him from team activities.
That's the thing. It hasn't been raised yet.
And so who knows if that's now off the table? I'd imagine it would be. Yeah. I don't think anyone thinks it's good for him to be completely isolated from the team during all this. But, I mean, we'll see what the ins and outs are. The good news is for all intents and purposes, it looks like he's going to be able to be around the team. And that's important. That's super important. And I think Adam Silver knows that. The team knows that. And at this point, he knows that too.
Yeah. No, I agree. As Grizz Company Main said, Jaren came in off the top rope with the appeal 16 games. And so who knows? Obviously, Jaren is in, the offices of the NBAPA. And so he is part of the Players Association. And so that obviously could help. But it also, he doesn't want to get where he's too involved because it is his own teammate. So there's so many things regarding all of this. It is still up in the air. But the simple thing is now we know that the 25 games is there. We kind of know how to, to accept that as a fan. It's not getting worse. Okay. We know that. We can all agree, not getting worse. That's the good thing. But it possibly could get lowered. But in a sense, if it is the 25 games, I'm okay. It's mainly all about 12. Does he get his life together? Does he get it fixed? Does he figure out what he needs to do to better set himself up to be the face of this franchise, to be the face, potentially of the league? Because if he can figure out himself, which he's probably, you got to talk about the skyrocket in the last 5 years from being at Murray State or to being before then, before he was even known, to being then at Murray State and then just completely skyrocketing there to then being drafted by the Grizzlies and then taking off from there. Like he is on a moving rocket straight up. And so his life has to be obviously just off flip, turned upside down. Oh, sorry. That's my Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But I will say that there's so much going on in his life. I hope he figures itself out, because if it doesn't, none of this matters. Any conversations we have, that matters nothing. And so let's go ahead and start getting out of here. Anything else you got on this before we close up?
No, but I'd be remiss, just like if Ja didn't learn from his lessons here. I would be remiss if we didn't bring up our presenting sponsor, Zach Jaworski State Farm, where they take care of Daniel no matter when he loses things left, right. I'm sure his house will burn down soon. Guess who's got him covered? Zach Jaworski State Farm. I'm not in Memphis, so I can't be accused of anything. But Zach, give him a call. I don't know what his number is. I don't know what his website is. I know Daniel has a banner for it, but I just want to make sure I got my ad read in so that I could look out for our guys. Zach Jaworski State Farm, where they treat you like family.
There you go. You can call them at 901-794-3691. Yeah, I was going to skip it. This was a freebie, so I was just going to skip today's. But you know what? Appreciate you for bringing that in. Tuesday, we have Chip Williams coming on. We're going to talk all about the draft, but it's going to be completely different. I'm hoping to get Chip's big board, his NBA big board, because I have questions. I want to ask him why this guy over another guy for the Grizzlies, because I have my favorites just like you have your favorites. And so hopefully we'll be having, I guess, some way to release that to everybody and show you what his big board would be. That way we can all kind of see it together and kind of see the people that he likes for the Grizzlies over others. And I'm going to ask, why do you have Julian Strawther so low? I don't even know. I don't even know if he does, but I want to ask that question because that's who I think the Grizzlies need to go after. And I think that's who they will go after. And so I hope I'm right on that one, but we'll see. But if you have nothing, I have nothing. It's just an emergency pop-up show we wanted to do real quick. We obviously have our busy days, and so we want to make sure that we give you the content that you deserve. And so we'll be back here Tuesday night, 8:00 Central with Chip Williams. We'll be going live as well. So that's all we have. You have a great weekend. It's Father's Day, so shout out all the good fathers. And honestly, to all the good kids, to all the good moms that are going to be taking care of us, they're going to make us look pretty cool. So that's all we got. Let's have a great week. Have a great weekend. Be nice and tell your friends.